Okay, I expect we'll still have people trickling in, but I'm going to go ahead and get started. Good to see everybody. I understand this is dinner time. A lot of people off camera. You're more than welcome to come on camera too. You did come into the meeting on mute, and we do that so that there's no background accidental distraction, that kind of thing while folks are talking. At the end of this, we'll have a Q&A session, and you'll be able to come off mute and ask questions if you'd like. My name is Anthony Allen. I'm a member of the project team. I work for Save the Sound, and I want to welcome you all to the 6th community meeting about the Kinneytown Dam Removal Project. This is our first one that is fully virtual. This is summer season, a lot of vacations, a lot of stuff going on, and we felt like we wanted to still provide updates. We didn't want to skip this meeting at all, and we will be back in our hybrid format in September for our next one. So it's great to see everybody in this virtual domain. And speaking of which, I'm just going to give you a little bit of a orientation to the space and how we're going to be using it today. Guessing that some people are very familiar with Zoom and others maybe a little bit less so. So some of the things we'll be using under the participants tab. So I'm going to be referencing sort of the bottom of your screen. You'll see a toolbar. You'll see one button that says participants. That'll bring up the participants tab to the right. And you can find your name. And one of the things you can do there, although it looks like everybody is already, has their correct name on here, recognize a lot of the names here. You can go to the 3 dots next to your name if you hover over your name, and you can change your name. It says rename. You can rename yourself if you need to do that, if you're on someone else's Zoom and you'd like us to know exactly who's in the space. And then you'll notice right next to that or near that on the toolbar, there's a chat function. You click on the chat function, it'll bring up the chat bar. We're going to be using this primarily if you're having technical difficulties or need assistance with something. Please feel free to chat to us, or just if you want to share some thoughts as we go, feel free to use the chat function for that. Right next to that, or near that, I don't know exactly how it looks on your end, you'll see a heart-shaped button that says React. If you click on that, it brings up a whole range of options. You can give us thumbs up, you can do emojis, but importantly, there's a button there that says raise hand. And we're going to be using that in the Q&A part of the meeting tonight. If you want to come off of mute and ask your question live, you can raise your hand and we'll call on you and we'll bring you in and you'll come off mute. Alternatively, as we go through the updates tonight, or if you're just more comfortable asking a question via written question, you can go all the way over to the right on your bottom toolbar and you'll see 3 dots and it says more. When you click on that, a bunch of options will pop up for you. One of them is Q&A. This is a different function than chat. It allows us to see just questions as they come in, and it allows us to sort of, allows you to, I believe, to also thumbs up other people's questions to say, I have the same question, that kind of thing. But it allows us to track them and indicate which ones have been answered. So please, if you have questions you'd like to ask the project team, please put it in that Q&A function. All right. Those are the tools that we're going to be using today. And if you want to turn your camera on or off, that's in the bottom left of your toolbar. You'll see a video. It's a camera image, and you can click that, toggle that on and off to turn your camera on and off. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kaylee Mahalko, one of our community liaisons for the project, to get us started. Kaylee.
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. As Anthony said, we wanted to have a virtual meeting so that we can still give you updates, still get some questions in, but we understand that it's summer and a lot of people are traveling. So wherever you are, thank you for joining us. At this time, I would normally say, and to find the bathrooms, you're going to go, but you know where your bathroom is. Um, and yeah, with that, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm going to turn this over to Erin in a moment. Today, we're going to just do a brief introduction, welcome, which is basically what we're doing now. We're going to go through the project overview, some project updates, which there are some to let you know about, and then we'll have a Q&A and discussion. And I'll just ditto what Anthony said. Use that Q&A section in the toolbar to put your question in there. And if you have any technical difficulties, use the chat. So thank you all so much for being here. And I'm turning this over to Erin.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Kaylee. I'm Aaron Budrus. I'm the Director of Environmental Planning at the Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments. I'm joined by Paul Woodworth. Paul, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming.
So we normally, at these previous meetings, we've gone over sort of the project background and history and everything. We're going to sort of skip that tonight. So, it'll be a little bit shorter. I apologize, we don't have pizza to share with you, but we will make it up to you next time. So we'll just give you a really brief project overview, just to make sure everybody is sort of on the same page. So our plan is to acquire the Kinneytown Dam facility through the Connecticut Brownfield Land Bank. We have engineers on board right now that are looking at the engineering design of the dam removal. We know that we're going to have to manage a lot of sediments that are impounded behind the dam. So we have EPA working on that right now. We will decommission through the FERC, who licenses the facility, and remove Kinneytown Dam. We need to relocate sewer infrastructure that are owned by the town of Seymour, and are behind the dam, located in sediments that are going to be mobilized as we remove the dam. When all is said and done, after the dam is removed, we are going to restore the Naugatuck River and develop permanent recreational access to the river for residents and visitors. And throughout, we are committed to engaging stakeholders and residents. That's why we've been holding these meetings every other month. I can't believe this is already our sixth one. But time flies. So the biggest update that we have for you tonight, that I'm sure many of you have heard about in the newspaper, is that we have received additional funding for the project. We have conditional commitment from the Department of Community and Economic Development, or DECD, through their Brownfield Municipal Grant Program. And that $4 million is going to be used for additional site assessment and site remediation. So really dealing with those contaminated sediments, dealing with potentially contaminated building materials and things like that. So that's a welcome addition to our funding stack. The big one, though, is we received $25 million in state bond funds that were committed during the state legislative session that ended last month. We worked with state agencies. We worked with our state legislators to get that done. We're really appreciative of all of the work that went into that, and for the support that the state has shown us through this process. We reported to you at the previous meetings that we're on our way to fully funding the project, but this brings us a whole lot closer. It gives us some security. It gives us gives our other federal funding sources, especially, confidence that we're going to be able to complete this project with the funding that we have so far. So really happy to report that. And with those funding sources, it brings our total committed to the project right now over $50 million. So, we are not far enough along in the design process yet to really know exactly how much this project's going to cost. Our initial estimates of the dam removal and the sewer relocation combined is close to $50 million. And we right now are trying to figure out what it's going to cost to manage the sediment. So that's really the sort of the wild card in the whole project. And we are we're working on that now, but we are a whole lot closer today than we were last time we talked to you to fully fund the project. On the property acquisition front, this is something we've been saying is coming very soon since we first started talking to you all. It's sort of a moving target, but we are pretty confident that we pretty much have everything we need right now to close on the property. Think that funding, the backstop funding, gives the Connecticut Brownfield Land Bank a lot of confidence in us being able to finish the project as well. So, they're not as concerned about, sort of being stuck holding this liability. Right now, the last sort of piece that we need is an updated Phase 1 environmental report, which will help shield the Connecticut Brownfield Land Bank from some of that liability. So we had a Phase 1 environmental assessment done, and it after 6 months, those reports lapse. So we do just have to update that. We have a licensed environmental professional on board that is updating that Phase 1 report over the next couple of weeks. And once that's done, we're going to move rapidly to close on the project. On the Seymour Sewer Relocation Project, CDM Smith, our engineering consultant on that side, is working in the field. So they just did some geotechnical investigation along the routes that they've identified in their alternatives analysis that included some geotechnical borings along the roadways and in the canal, which is one of the locations where they're considering moving some of that infrastructure. So they brought in a barge that was craned into place in the canal on the east side of Kinneytown Dam. And for a couple weeks, they were drilling in the canal to sort of better understand what's below the canal and to see what we would need to do in order to relocate those sewer lines into the canal. So that's wrapped up. For that project, they needed a certain amount of water in the canal to float their barge. So we did raise the water level in the canal and in Coe Pond temporarily. And with them wrapped up last week, we went back out and re-lowered the water. So now the water is again at its lower level that we had brought it down to last fall, and it'll remain at that level. CDM Smith's consultants have also completed their wetland delineation, and they're out there doing some additional survey work, and they're going to be developing a few alternatives that the town and NBCOG will be looking at and deciding what makes the most sense as sort of the final location of those sewer infrastructure after the dam's removed. Now that we have sort of our engineers on board for both projects, for both parts of the project, for the dam removal and for the sewer project, we've started discussions with regulatory agencies. It's sort of an alphabet soup of state and federal agencies that are going to be involved in permitting or in some cases own property adjacent to the site. So, we've been reaching out to them, sort of starting a dialogue so that, as the project moves along, there's not a permit that's holding us up, or, we at least understand what's going to be required from each agency of us. So a few weeks ago, we had an initial meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers. We know that we're going to need permits from the Corps to do the project. They also own and operate a flood mitigation system downstream. And they're very concerned about the impacts on navigation downstream of sediment releases that might be part of the project. So we wanted to get on the same page with them, make them aware that we're going to be doing this project and start that dialogue. Last week we met with the Connecticut Department of Transportation, and we've been having meetings with them all along about some really specific items. Like there are two rail bridges that are basically co-located with parts of the dam facility. There's one right on the east side of the dam that crosses the canal that enters Co Pond. There's also a bridge basically right next to the Unit 2 powerhouse in Ansonia. So we've been talking to their bridge unit, their rail bridge unit for a while now, but we wanted to make them aware of all of the other possible impacts to their infrastructure and impacts of their infrastructure on our site. So, we also wanted to talk about access permits. If you look at the map of the project area, it's really bound by Route 8 on the west and Metro North Waterbury branch line on the east. So understanding how we're going to get access with heavy equipment into the site, how we're going to get materials in and out of the site. We wanted to start those discussions as well. And then we also want to, really advocate for the idea of long-term river access. DOT doesn't usually like people crossing rail, and we want to make sure that whatever access we do propose is safe and will be viewed as safe by the department. So, we did talk about, or at least start the conversation about that as well. And then we've been having meetings all along with the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, or DEEP. And we've been talking a lot about the sediment sampling plan that Paul will touch on in a moment. And then, so the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission is the agency that regulates the dam itself, and we're going to have to work with them closely to decommission and remove the project. So we will be having a forthcoming meeting with them, likely after we acquire the project. So we're working with all of these agencies, and we will be working with other agencies as well, just to make sure that we're all on the same page and we try to create a smooth path forward for the project. And then I'll hand it over now to Paul to talk about the dam removal design aspect.
Right. So we've introduced them before, but the GEI consultants, along with the team from Interfluve, they're not present on tonight's sort of presentation list, but they're moving through their data collection phase as well. I think we've reported this already, but they completed their aerial surveys, and now they're shifting into their land survey, sort of collecting land survey in areas that could not be captured well from aerial methods. And then most recently, we've started discussions with several different contractors that specialize in sediment dredging. So we've had some interesting discussions with them, talking to them about a big picture approaches and feasibility that have been very informative, and will continue going forward and eventually go out to site, walk the site and glean the best information we can from those contractors that may pursue the project when it comes time to construction bidding, but to gain their insight and help us develop our sediment management plans as EPA continues their sediment investigation this summer. And of course, GEI has been part of these regulatory discussions that we've been having with Army Corps and will be having with FERC. So next slide, Aaron. And GEI as well will be helping us lead a future design workshop. We're hoping for late fall or this winter to be able to present some design alternatives to this audience and the community. uh, give you all a chance to sort of weigh in on some of the alternatives and provide some feedback on some of the elements that can provide amenities and benefits to the community. So these design alternatives will be sort of bigger picture, but we'll address things such as sediment management and placement and some of those things that will be constrained by engineering factors and physical characteristics of the site and regulatory obligations we have. But some will be like trail patterns and routing and whatnot, and other amenities along with that. That will be helpful to have your input on. So stay tuned and please keep attending these events in the future. So again, we're aiming for that in late fall or early winter. And as Aaron had alluded to, EPA is continuing. This is going to be their second round of sampling. They have a sediment sampling plan and quality assurance plan submitted to Connecticut Deep for comment. So we hope to get some comments back on that and make some revisions and be able to get out into the field sometime this August to finish our sediment sampling. And then also reported and introduced at our last meeting, but I'm going to bears repeat tonight. We have contracted with a documentary film development firm called Real Quest Films, who will be embarking on the development of a 3-part documentary series. Right now, we have funding for this first part. They will be making some visits to this site this summer in August, co-timed with sediment sampling, but also looking to interview various people that have been involved in this, let's say, connected to the river and the Naugatuck Valley history. And we'll be reaching out to perhaps some people on this call for interviews. So stay tuned for that as well. We're hoping to get a broad spectrum of people interviewed and possibly wrapped into this development of the content of this documentary series. And Aaron, with that, I think I could pass it back to you.
Sure. So, all that said, we're making some really good progress. We've been sharing this timeline the past few meetings, and I think we're still pretty much on track to meet these dates. So 2025, we'll be acquiring the project property, beginning the engineering design, which that's really sort of already underway with the alternatives phase. The EPA environmental assessment is going to continue. We're hoping to get that data collection later this summer, as Paul said. EPA is also going to be developing a sediment management plan for us, which we're hoping to have by the end of the year. We're going to continue having these meetings throughout 2025 and going forward. And we're hoping to have the sewer siphon design pretty much wrapping up by the end of the year. And then we'll continue engineering design next year, work through a lot of the permitting and FERC decommissioning process, potentially start the sewer siphon construction if it doesn't make sense to do it simultaneously to the dam removal. And hopefully we can start construction of the dam removal in 2027 and be enjoying the restored Naugatuck River in 2028. So that is our update. And we're happy to take any questions or comments.
Yeah, I don't see anything right now in the Q&A box or the chat, so please feel free to use the raise hand function and we'll invite you to unmute. Or you could, of course, also still use Q&A or chat function if you prefer.
While we wait for comments to come in, questions or comments to come in, Anthony, did you want to add anything about the RealQuest team and their likely interviews in the next couple months?
Yeah, but they're a fantastic team. Ryan and Jerry, we've worked with them before, and they do a great job of looking at the context for all these projects and all this work. And so they're gonna, they're entering into their research right now. And so when Paul said, they might be reaching out to some of you, that's we're gonna try and put them in touch with folks, from the Historical Society, from the impacted communities, and just try and make sure that they have access to and most well-rounded picture of the project, especially for this first film. Paul mentioned there's 3 parts. That's how we're envisioning it right now. The first part is really focused on the history. It's focused on all the way from pre-colonial times all the way up to the start of this effort.
Thanks, Anthony.
I can jump in here real quick as the community liaison. One of the 2 community liaisons here. It's myself and Jeff, who's also on tonight. I am going to be doing a lot of work more directly with the RealQuest team. So if you do have any historical information, photos, that kind of thing, I would love to see what you have. So please email me directly. My email's in the chat now, communityliaison2@savethesound.org.
And I know that some of the names I see are familiar ones, and so I'm sure many of you are old pros, have asked your questions at previous meetings, and this is just a quick refresher, so perhaps that's why we don't have as many questions, but definitely want to give one more opportunity for anybody to write their question in the Q&A box or the chat, or to raise your hand and we can unmute you for the questions or comments.
Make one more comment that some of you may have seen that this project got a little bit of coverage in WTNH news about a week and a half ago. We occasionally get requests from press and TV media that have questions and are requesting interviews, and we try to do our best to respond to them when they come in and help sort of keep the information flowing out to the community. One last call for any comments or questions.
All right, if they come in while I'm speaking, we'll answer the question, but if not, I would like to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Our next meeting will be in September, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And in the meantime, go through the story map if you want some background. Reach out to me if you have any information that you'd like us to see for the documentary. And we'll see you around town. Have a wonderful night, a wonderful week, and we'll hopefully see you at the next one with a friend. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Appreciate it.